I hear people quite often talk about why can't people see the new me? Why can't they see the changes that are done in my life? And where does this come from? Well, I believe this is a case of mistaken identity, and it occurs because of a couple of things. So let's think. We're talking about you now, and we're gonna project some things onto you. This is you, and let's have this conversation. And I can say this from my perspective, but it's like we're having a conversation. You're like, yo, Anthony, man, I'm taking some steps in my life. I know I've been a mess in the past, and I can tell you I've been here. Like, I've made some mistakes in my own life in the past. And, with every mistake comes some circumstances you got to walk through. There are some repercussions that you have because of the things you do. Let me first say that. Maybe that's a jumping off point. As a pastor, yeah, I'm a pastor if you didn't know that already. There's a lot of people who think because they come to Christ that he's just going to remove all repercussions from the mistake and the actions they take before this. You hear those crickets chirping? Yeah, like if you just completely wrong somebody, stole something from somebody, did something. Like, I see a lot of people who want to find Jesus when now they're encountered with the law. And there's this false narrative that, well, if I give my life to Christ and he forgives me, then he's going to take away all repercussions, and I don't have to go to jail. I don't have to pay back anything. That's the God I serve. Yeah, it's not always that way. And if you have those expectations and he doesn't remove your jail time because there's something there you're supposed to learn because you did some things wrong, and you need to grow from them, and you think he's going to take it from them. I watched a Instagram video today, and it was talking about how a lot of people put God as a doer. And if he doesn't do what you want him to do, then, well, is God real? And there's a lot of people that get stuck in that place of repercussions and actions that when you do something, you think God's just going to remove it all from you because now suddenly you've given your life to him and you believe. That's not the case. I'm not saying that there hasn't been people who have been able to get less sentences because they made changes in their life and their walk with him. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that those moments haven't occurred. What I'm saying is that's not the status quo. That's everything has a purpose. Every moment has a like you have to learn some lessons sometimes. And if you don't go through those, then we just believe that God is just this corrective father that you shouldn't do that. You probably shouldn't do that. Guess what? If that's who he is, guess what you're probably going to do again? The same thing you did the first time because you didn't understand the lesson. There were some people who will understand the lesson and never have to go through it. Some of us need to get our nose rubbed in the carpet because what we did deserved it. Understanding, walking out, learning that. So that's just a side note here. I didn't even have that in what I was going to talk about today, but somebody need to hear it, I guess. If you made a mistake, don't assume that all the repercussions are going to go away. If you got to walk through a tough season because of a decision you made, then your ability is, what do I have to learn in this season? And two is, I never want to have to go through this again. So I'm not going to make this mistake again. But you get to, and we go back to the very initial, you were sitting down in a conversation like, man, Anthony, I've changed some things in my life and I'm getting better. But I noticed that the people around me still refer to me with the same thing. They still refer to the most problemsome part of my life. They refer to the worst part of me. They won't forgive me for the things I've done. They constantly hold me accountable for these places. And I'm new. I'm not that person anymore, but it affects our relationship and all the things. There's a lot of people stuck in that mindset. See, I believe today that that's a case of mistaken identity. And I'll give it to you from this lens, from this perspective. I'm walking down the road and someone yells out, "Hey, Steve." Am I going to turn around and answer to that name? Am I going to look that way and be like, oh, is somebody talking to me? No. Like if somebody continues, yo, Steve, Steve. And I'm like the only one in the road, I may turn like, who are you talking to? But I'm not instantly going to just answer to Steve because that's not who I am. See, I think this is where the case of mistaken identity happens in our life a lot. When we grow, we change, when we shift, when we learn, when we move on, when we become better versions of ourselves, when we realistically come through our mistakes and we um, have done everything that's required to walk through them, there's some people who want to keep us stuck there. Why? Because a lot of times it validates their own brokenness.